Hey guys, welcome to EDC-ish. I have a custom knife overview for you today. This is the Gareth Bull Shamwari. Gareth Bull, or Gaza for short, is a knife maker out of South Africa. He was originally born in Zimbabwe, where he grew up on a farm. Throughout his upbringing, he was exposed to knives and their daily uses. His first knife as a boy was a Swiss Army officer that he received when he was just 6 years old. By the time he was 13, he had moved off the farm and Gareth was starting to make knives himself. He says that the factory, I think it was a plastics factory, that his father started working in had a machine shop. And one day he was given a piece of an old saw blade, and in that shop, he was able to fashion it into a crude knife. And that was the beginning of the addiction for young Gaza. Going forward, he took every opportunity he could to learn and to work in shops, making knives, stuff like that. He focused primarily on ergos and perfecting his craft with the tools in the shops. It wasn't until he took a vacation to South Africa where he discovered a copy of Blade magazine. Let me get it to focus there. When he found this copy of Blade, he started to dream and think about making folding knives. That's a piece of denim right there. When Gareth officially moved to South Africa for college, he met the late Louis van der Walt and attended his first knife show. At that show, he enrolled in a class to learn how to make a liner lock knife. In that class, he used his first belt grinder. Until then, he had been using stones or files. With the exception of that class, Gareth is a completely self-taught knife maker. Bull's designs are simple and clean, as you can tell by these knives that I'm showing you here. He strives to make the entire blade usable, thus the deletion of traditional opening methods, thumb studs, spidey holes, flipper tabs, anything like that. He works to maximize the blade to handle ratio so that you get the most bang for your buck in the size of knife that you're carrying. That trait is one that is shared by a lot of South African knife makers. That is a South African kind of knife characteristic is really great blade to handle ratios. You can see the tip there is right to the end of the handles. Any more blade and you would run the risk of being able to catch yourself on it. Let me get it to focus so you can see that. So, like I said, these two knives are the Gareth Bull Shamwaris. Shamwari is a Shona word. Shona is a Bantu language native to Zimbabwe, and it means companion. My Shamwari is an exemplification of that word. This knife could literally accompany you anywhere. Its size is comfortable. Its slimness in the pocket makes it very easy to carry. And yeah. So let's go over some specs really quick. The blade on these two is 3.25 inches. Gareth does occasionally make different sizes. He'll make a 3.5 inch Shamwari or a 3 inch Shamwari. I think that might be called the Warlock though. The overall length is 7.5 inches. The weight of the knife is 3.6 ounces. And the steel is N690. He also will use RWL34 from time to time or Dama steel for the really fancy ones. So right up front, the Shamwari is going to remind you of another very well-known knife, the Sebenza. Both Chris Reeve and Gareth are South African knife makers, although Chris Reeve is now native to the US and is making knives out of Idaho. If you look at the knives that are coming out of that part of the world, being South Africa, you'll notice that they all share some characteristics, or not all of them, but they generally share some characteristics. There's a common design aesthetic shared between those knives. I find that pretty interesting. But you'll notice that I think that this particular size of Shamwari slots right in really handily between the small and the large Sebenza. The small Sebenza being just under 3 inches, the large being around like 3.5, a little bit more. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while since I've had a large Sebenza. The blade on these, just like a Sebenza 21, is a nicely hollow ground blade with a very useful drop point configuration. Like I said, it's 3.25 inches. And Gareth has just introduced his Cheka blade style, which is a little more of a Warncliffe, or if we're using the Chris Reeve comparison, it would remind you of an Insingo. The ergonomics on the knives are very simple. They're straight handles with a rounded back. It has a simple 1-finger groove up here at the front that aligns with your index really well. Construction-wise, it's very simple. You have a pivot with a proprietary pivot screw, and you can get a pivot driver from Gareth. And then you have a single stop pin and a single standoff in the back, which he anodizes whatever color you like. Mine, this is mine, that one's blue, and then this is my buddy's who went for a bronze anodizing. The knife rides on phosphor bronze washers, and it has a milled pocket clip there. Now, if you look at some of the older knives from Gareth, he did from time to time use bent tie clips or something along those lines, and I like those as well. This is a very functional milled clip, and I think that it adds quite a bit to the aesthetics of the knife overall, and it slims it down. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about front flippers. Let's see if I can even do this in front of the camera. So, a lot of Gareth's knives, this one I won't be able to do because it's my friend's, and I'm waiting to deliver this to him at Blade Show, and I haven't played with it because I want him to break it in. I can just about get it. These knives are marketed as front flippers. Gareth says they are front flippers when he's selling them, and that is kind of what they've been accepted to be. I talked to Gareth about that a little bit, and what I found is that in South Africa, they are calling these lip openers. And I think that the idea of flipping these open is something that we brought to this particular knife versus something that I think it was intended to do. The most reliable and effective way to open it is a slow pivot like that, like you would with a thumb stud. I think when you're thinking about knives, a traditional flipper or even a true front flipper like Thornburn is doing, or even Terzula is doing, is a little more intuitive way to open a knife if you want to flip it. This to me is a little wonky and not super reliable. Opening a lip opener as a front flipper is fun. I like to mess around with it. However, it doesn't feel supernatural to me. That does, but this, like, I have to like prep for it, and I don't know if that is something that I would call reliable. Now, since it's breaking in really smooth, it has gotten easier. When I first got the knife and it was a little stiff, it was difficult, and so maybe it's part of breaking in the knife and also part of my technique. Just my 2 cents. I would call this a lip opener, not a front flipper. And I would, if I'm pulling it out of my pocket to use it, that's going to be how I'm going to open it, is just a pivot like a thumb stud. But, you know, if you can do that, more power to you. So, kind of to wrap things up about Gareth's knives, Gareth makes a great knife, as you can tell. They're simple. It's in a tradition that's very specific to where the knives come from where Gareth comes from. He is self-taught, and if you look at kind of the progression of his knives across his career, you see a really great sort of improvement of features and quality from when he first started. Something personal for me is I really appreciate the simplistic elements in his design. The front flipper or the lip opener may not be everyone's ball of wax. However, I think that the deletion of an opening method from the blade really allows a slim design that I really like, that I think is really cool. It makes it nice and simple. I also really appreciate the uncomplicated mechanics of these knives. There are phosphor bronze washers, a single standoff, and a single stop pin screw on there. You don't have bearings, you don't have IKBS. All of those things might make them smoother, although once I got this broken in, I don't even know if it can make it any smoother. But these are very simple to maintain and very simple to use. So kind of to wrap it up, I would tell you that you would do well to order a knife from Mr. Bull. I've primarily contacted him through Facebook Messenger. He's on there pretty much every day. He was very communicative throughout my build process. And I'm sure he'd love to make you a knife. I don't exactly know where he's at in terms of taking orders or not taking orders, but he's doing runs of various knives. And so I would shoot him a message and see if maybe you can get in on one of those runs. So, as for my channel, I appreciate you coming by and watching the videos. There will be a link in the description to Blade HQ. If you have your eye on any knives out there that you want to buy, or gear in general, I would appreciate it if you went through that link to do it. Doing so will directly support my channel and help me to bring you more in-depth, informative videos like this. So, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And once again, these are the Gareth Bull Shamwaris. And I'm looking forward, as always, to reading your comments. If you have any questions or anything, go ahead and comment, and I will do my best to answer. Thanks, guys.